The world runs on some pretty horrible things. And we've known this, in some cases, for decades.
The level of pollution is astonishing.
So why can't we quit them?
Sabe que a gente está prejudicando nossa geração próxima, né? Mas a gente também precisa trabalhar, precisa sobreviver.
This is a series about breaking our addiction to the resources that harm our planet, the forces standing in the way,
This is Norwegian sovereignty.
and the impacts all of this has on, well, us, the people that rely on them.
You have no option left.
If we are unable to demonstrate the pathway, then we are going to lose the fight to save the planet.
You get the point there, how difficult it is.
It really is.